The voice crackled through the radio at 0347 hours, cutting through the static like a ghost from the past. Viper 27 to Elmendorf Tower, requesting immediate vector for approach, fuel critical. Major Chloe Hall's blood turned to ice. Her hands tightened on the F-22 Raptors control stick as she exchanged glances with her wingman through the darkness. Viper 27 had been declared killed in action 3 weeks ago over the Bering Sea. She'd attended his memorial service, she'd consoled his widow, she'd helped carry his empty casket. Yet here was his call sign, broadcasting on an encrypted military frequency that only their squadron knew, using authentication codes that should have died with Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Ghost Rivera. "Tower, this is Reaper 1, Chloe transmitted, her voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding her system. "Confirm you're receiving transmission from alleged Viper 27. "Reaper 1, affirmative. We're tracking an unidentified aircraft bearing 270, Angels 35, approximately 200 miles out. No transponder, no IFF response." Chloe's mind raced. The identification friend or foe system was the cornerstone of military aviation safety. Flying without it in Alaskan airspace, especially near the Russian border, was either suicidal or suspicious, or both. "Viper 27, this is Reaper 1, she called out, breaking protocol. "Authenticate Zebra November." The response came immediately, in Marcus's unmistakable Boston accent. "Reaper 1, authentication Tango Whiskey." "Chloe, it's really me. I'm coming in hot with half the Russian Air Force on my 6. Whatever you do, don't let them follow me home." 6 hours earlier, Chloe had been sound asleep in her quarters at Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson when the scramble alarm shattered the Arctic night. She was airborne in her F-22 within 4 minutes, her wingman Captain James Boxer Chen forming up on her wing as they climbed into the star-filled Alaskan sky. The mission brief had been simple: investigate an unusual radar contact near the Air Defense Identification Zone, routine stuff for the 90th Fighter Squadron. Now, nothing about this mission felt routine. "Reaper Flight, this is Elmendorf Command," the radio crackled. "ROE is weapons tight. Repeat, weapons tight. Do not engage unless fired upon. Vector 275 for intercept." Chloe pushed her throttles forward, the twin Pratt and Whitney engines responding with a surge of power that pressed her back into her ejection seat. The F-22 Raptor was the most advanced fighter aircraft ever built, a perfect fusion of stealth, speed, and lethality. In her 8 years of flying them, she'd never felt more grateful for the aircraft's capabilities than she did right now. "Boxer, stay tight," she called to her wingman. "Whatever's out there, we're going to need each other." "Copy that, Reaper 1. I've got your 6. The miles melted away as they flew northwest toward the Bering Strait, that narrow strip of water separating Alaska from Russia. It was a geopolitical flashpoint that had only grown hotter in recent months. Russian bombers probed American airspace weekly, testing response times and gathering intelligence. The dance was as old as the Cold War, but lately the music had taken on a more aggressive tempo. Chloe's radar warning receiver suddenly erupted in a cacophony of tones. Multiple contacts coming in fast from the west. She checked her tactical display and felt her stomach drop. 6 bandits, possibly more, all heading straight for them. "Elmendorf Command, Reaper 1. We have multiple bogies, bearing 268, hot aspect, closing fast. Request weapons free." "Negative, Reaper 1. Weapons remain tight. Those contacts are in international airspace." "Command, they're clearly pursuing something. If that's really Marcus." "Reaper 1, maintain ROE. Weapons tight." Chloe bit back her frustration. Rules of engagement were rules of engagement, even when they made no tactical sense. She'd learned that lesson the hard way over Syria, watching enemy fighters escape because some lawyer in Washington decided the political risk was too high. "Viper 27, Reaper 1, what's your status?" Marcus's voice came back strained, the sound of someone pulling hard G's. "Reaper 1, I'm Winchester on AMRAAMs, down to guns only. I've got 6, maybe 7 flankers trying to splash me. These aren't regular Russian Air Force, Chloe. They're Wagner Group, mercenaries, Wagner Group." The name sent a chill down Chloe's spine. The notorious Russian private military company had been expanding its air operations, recruiting former military pilots and acquiring surplus fighters through shell companies. They operated in the shadows, giving Moscow plausible deniability for aggressive actions. "How the hell are you alive, Marcus?" she demanded, banking her fighter to get a better radar picture. "Long story. Short version. They shot me down 3 weeks ago, took me prisoner. I've been in some godforsaken facility in Siberia. Managed to escape 4 days ago, stole one of their Su-35s. Been island hopping across the Bering Sea, stealing fuel where I could find it. A stolen Russian fighter." That explained the lack of IFF. It also meant that in about 3 minutes, Chloe would be faced with an impossible choice. Watch her friend, if it really was him, get shot down by Russian mercenaries, or violate her orders and risk starting World War III. Reaper 1. Bandits now bearing 270 20 miles and closing, Boxer reported. "I'm painting 6 Su-35 flankers and, wait, there's something else. Larger signature, hanging back." Chloe checked her own radar. Boxer was right. Behind the fighters was a larger aircraft, probably an A-50 mainstay airborne early warning plane. The Russians were treating this like a major operation. "Viper 27, can you make it to U.S. airspace?" "Negative. Maybe 50 miles of fuel left, and that's being optimistic. These bastards have been herding me north for the last hour, trying to force me down in international waters where they can finish me off without consequences." Chloe's mind raced through the tactical situation. 6 enemy fighters, possibly more. A damaged, fuel-critical friendly aircraft in a Russian airframe that her own systems would identify as hostile. Rules of engagement that prevented her from firing unless fired upon. And somewhere in the middle of it all, her friend, who was supposed to be dead. Elmendorf Command. Reaper 1, requesting immediate guidance. "We have a stolen enemy aircraft claiming to be flown by our KIA pilot, pursued by Wagner Group fighters. How do you want us to proceed?" The pause that followed felt like an eternity. Chloe knew that right now, her transmission was being relayed up the chain of command. Someone in the Pentagon was being woken up. The president might be getting a call. Meanwhile, the distance between her and the approaching fighters was shrinking by the second. "Reaper Flight, this is Brigadier General Morrison." Chloe recognized the gravelly voice of the 11th Air Force commander. "I'm authorizing a modification to ROE. You are cleared to defend any aircraft attempting to reach U.S. airspace from hostile action. Weapons free if bandits cross the ADIZ or demonstrate hostile intent. Copy. Weapons free if they cross the ADIZ, Reaper 1. It wasn't much, but it was something. Chloe switched her radar to its most powerful search mode, abandoning any pretense of stealth. If the Russians didn't know exactly where she was before, they did now. "Boxer, spread formation. Let's give them something to think about." The 2 F-22s separated, opening the distance between them to about 5 miles. It was a classic tactical move, forcing any attacker to choose between targets and making it easier to execute flanking maneuvers. On her radar, Chloe could now see the drama unfolding. A single aircraft, squawking "No IFF," was jinxing and weaving as the 6 flankers closed in. Even at this distance, she could admire the pilot's skill. Whoever was flying that aircraft knew what they were doing. "Unidentified aircraft. This is United States Air Force Reaper 1, Chloe broadcast on the international emergency frequency. "You are approaching United States airspace. State your intentions." One of the pursuing flankers responded in accented English. "American aircraft. This is Russian aviation. We are pursuing stolen property. Do not interfere with legal recovery operation." "Russian aircraft. Be advised that any violation of United States airspace will be considered a hostile act. Maintain your position in international airspace." "Is Russian aircraft stolen by terrorist. We have right to recover." Chloe muted her mic and swore. The Russians were playing it smart, creating a narrative that would justify their actions if this went sideways. A stolen fighter, a terrorist pilot. It would muddy the waters enough to give Moscow diplomatic cover. "Viper 27, Reaper 1. Can you confirm your identity? Tell me something only Marcus would know." The response was immediate. "Remember that night at Red Flag?" You bet me a bottle of Macallan 18 that I couldn't land with a hydraulic failure. You still owe me that bottle, Chloe. Catherine's middle name is Marie, after my grandmother. My daughter Sophia just turned 7, missed her birthday while I was gone. Chloe's throat tightened. Details like that couldn't be faked, not on the fly. It was him. Marcus Rivera was alive, and he was about to be shot down less than 50 miles from home. Command Reaper 1, I can confirm the identity of Viper 27. It's our guy. Roger, Reaper 1. Alert fighters are launching from Elmendorf. ETA your position 8 minutes. 8 minutes. In aerial combat, that might as well be 8 hours. The flankers were now inside 15 miles of Marcus's aircraft, well within missile range. They were holding fire, probably waiting to see what the American fighters would do. Chloe, Marcus's voice cut through, tight with strain, they're locking me up. Multiple radar spikes. They're going to take the shot. Chloe made her decision. Boxer, follow my lead. She rolled her F-22 inverted and pulled hard, pointing her nose directly at the pursuing flankers. It was an aggressive move, one that would be impossible to misinterpret. She activated her targeting radar, painting all 6 enemy fighters simultaneously. The F-22's AN/AP G-77 radar was so powerful that the flanker pilots would feel like they'd been hit with a searchlight. Russian aircraft, this is Reaper 1. You are targeting an aircraft in distress attempting to reach United States airspace. Break off your pursuit immediately or you will be engaged. The lead flanker pilot's response was to launch a missile. Chloe watched the R-77 radar-guided missile streak away from the lead flanker, heading straight for Marcus's aircraft. Without hesitation, she squeezed her trigger, sending an AIM-120D AMRAAM toward the missile. It was a nearly impossible shot trying to hit a missile with a missile, but the AMRAAM was the most advanced air-to-air weapon in the world. Fox 3, she announced calmly, following protocol even as her heart pounded. The 2 missiles passed each other in the night sky. Chloe's AMRAAM missed the R-77 by mere feet, but its proximity fuse detonated anyway, the explosion close enough to damage the Russian missile's guidance system. The R-77 spiraled off course, missing Marcus's aircraft by less than 100 feet. Russian aircraft, that was your only warning, Chloe broadcast. The next missile targets you. For a moment, the entire engagement seemed to pause. 6 flankers, 2 F-22s, and 1 stolen Su-35 hung in the dark sky like a tableau of modern warfare. Everyone was processing what had just happened. An American fighter had just fired on a Russian missile, not at a Russian aircraft, which would have been an act of war, but at its weapon. It was a hair-splitting distinction that might just prevent this from escalating into something catastrophic. Reaper 1, this is Russian flight leader. You have interfered with legal operation. This will have consequences. Russian flight leader, your missile threatened an aircraft in distress. Any further aggressive action will be met with deadly force. You have 2 choices. Break off and return to your airspace, or explain to your families why you didn't come home tonight. It was a bluff, partially. Chloe and Boxer were outnumbered 3-1. In a straight fight, even with their superior aircraft, the odds weren't great. But the Russians didn't know about the alert fighters scrambling from Elmendorf. They didn't know if more F-22s were lurking in the darkness, invisible to their radars. And most importantly, they were mercenaries, not regular military. They were in this for money, not patriotism. The seconds stretched into eternity. Then, slowly, the flankers began to turn. One by one, they peeled away, heading back toward Russian airspace. All except one. The lone flanker accelerated, afterburners blazing, heading straight for Marcus's aircraft. The pilot had decided to take his shot. Consequences be damned. Chloe didn't hesitate. Fox 3. The AMRAAM dropped from her weapons bay and ignited, streaking across the sky at Mach 4. The flanker pilot, realizing he was now the hunted instead of the hunter, broke hard right and deployed chaff and flares. It wasn't enough. The AMRAAM adjusted its trajectory, guided by its active radar seeker, and slammed into the flanker's port engine. The Russian fighter came apart in a brilliant fireball that briefly turned night into day. Chloe watched for a parachute, breathing a slight sigh of relief when she saw the ejection seat rocket away from the dying aircraft. Elmendorf Command, Reaper 1. Splash 1 flanker. Pilot ejected successfully. Request immediate search and rescue for survivor in international waters. Roger, Reaper 1. SAR is spinning up. Be advised you have 4 F-15s 30 seconds out. The cavalry had arrived. 4 F-15 Eagles burst onto the scene, their powerful radars lighting up the retreating flankers. The Russians, now outnumbered and having lost one of their own, accelerated their retreat. Viper 27, Reaper 1, you're clear to U.S. airspace. Welcome home, Ghost. Marcus's voice came back thick with emotion. Thanks, Chloe. I didn't think I was going to make it. Save it for the debrief. You still have to land that thing without getting shot down by our own air defenses. It was a valid concern. Marcus was flying a Russian Su-35, one of the most capable fighters in the world, and a prime adversary aircraft. Every radar operator from Alaska to California would see him as a threat. Elmendorf Tower, Reaper 1, requesting priority handling for recovered U.S. pilot and enemy aircraft. We'll need the entire approach corridor sanitized. Roger, Reaper 1. All air traffic is being diverted. Runway 06 is yours. Chloe and Boxer formed up on Marcus's flanker, one on each wing. It was surreal, flying in formation with an aircraft she'd trained to destroy. In the growing dawn light, she could see the damage to the fighter. Bullet holes peppered the fuselage, one engine was trailing smoke, and half the vertical stabilizer was missing. How Marcus had kept it in the air this long was a testament to his skill. Marcus, what's your fuel state? Running on fumes and prayer, Chloe. Maybe 5 minutes of flight time left. Elmendorf was still 30 miles away. At their current speed, that was about 4 minutes of flight time. It was going to be close. Boxer, alert Elmendorf crash crews. We might need them. As they descended through 20,000 feet, Chloe could see the sprawling joint base ahead. Fire trucks and ambulances were already positioning themselves along the runway. The entire base was watching. Marcus, gear down at 10 miles. Copy, gear. Gear is not responding. Hydraulics are shot. No landing gear. Chloe's mind raced through the options. A belly landing in a damaged fighter with minimal fuel was dangerous but survivable. Unless... Marcus, do you have any ordnance on board? Negative. Winchester on everything. Just me and this flying scrap metal. That was one piece of good news. No missiles or bombs to complicate a crash landing. But the Su-35 wasn't designed for belly landings like American fighters. Its air intakes hung low and would dig into the runway like anchors. Elmendorf Tower. Be advised Viper 27 will be conducting a gear-up landing. We need foam on the runway. Already in progress, Reaper 1. They were down to 15,000 feet now, 10 miles from the runway. Chloe could see the foam truck spraying a white carpet down the center of the runway. It wouldn't prevent a crash, but it might reduce the friction and fire risk. Marcus, you remember the emergency landing procedure we practiced in the simulator? The one where you said I flew like a drunk pelican? Yeah, I remember. Despite everything, Chloe smiled. That was the Marcus she remembered, cracking jokes even when things were at their worst. It's what had made him such a good squadron commander. Same principle applies here. Keep your energy up until the last possible moment. Aim for the 1,000-foot markers. The foam starts there. Copy. Chloe, if this doesn't work out, tell Catherine and Sophia. You'll tell them yourself. Focus on flying. They were at 5,000 feet now, 5 miles out. The Su-35's engine was coughing, running on the last drops of fuel. Chloe and Boxer spread out, giving Marcus room to maneuver if something went wrong. 3 miles, Marcus. Start your descent. The flanker nosed down, trading altitude for airspeed. It was a delicate balance. Too fast and he'd overshoot or break apart on impact. Too slow and he'd stall and crash short of the runway. 2 miles. Looking good. The engine died. The Su-35 went suddenly quiet. The only sound the whistle of air over its damaged surfaces. It was now a 100-ton glider, and not a particularly good one. I've got no power, no controls response, Marcus reported, his voice steady despite the situation. I'm dead stick. You've got enough energy. Trust the aircraft. 1 mile. The runway rushed up to meet them. Chloe could see people lining the taxiways, watching. Someone had leaked that this was happening. The entire base knew that Ghost was coming home. The Su-35 crossed the threshold at 200 feet, still too high. Marcus pushed the nose down, harder, diving for the runway. 100 feet, 50, 20. The fighter slammed into the foam-covered runway with a grinding screech of metal on concrete. Sparks erupted as the air intakes dug in, exactly as Chloe had feared. The aircraft slewed sideways, the damaged stabilizer unable to keep it straight. Come on, Chloe muttered, watching helplessly as the flanker skidded down the runway in a cloud of foam and smoke. The left wing dug into the runway, spinning the aircraft around. For a moment, it looked like it might cartwheel, but the rotation bled off the remaining energy. The Su-35 came to rest 3,000 feet down the runway, smoke pouring from its engines, but intact. "Marcus, you okay?" Marcus responded. For 3 heartbeats, there was silence. Then, "I'm okay." "Can't find the damn canopy release. Everything's labeled in Russian." Chloe laughed, the relief so intense it brought tears to her eyes. She watched as crash crews swarmed the downed fighter, foam cannons dousing the smoking engines, while firefighters worked to extract Marcus from the cockpit. Elmendorf Tower, Reaper Flight requesting priority landing. Reaper Flight, cleared for visual approach runway 24. Welcome home. Chloe and Boxer landed their F-22s smoothly, the advanced fighters seeming almost mundane after what they'd just witnessed. As she taxied to the hard stand, Chloe could see the emergency vehicles clustered around the Su-35. A figure in a Russian flight suit was standing next to an ambulance, gesturing animatedly at the medics trying to examine him. By the time she'd shut down her engines and climbed out of her cockpit, a small crowd had gathered. General Morrison was there, along with half the base leadership and what looked like every pilot in the 90th Fighter Squadron. Marcus saw her coming and broke away from the medics. He looked terrible, gaunt, bruised, with a week's worth of beard and hollow eyes that spoke of horrors she could only imagine. But he was alive. "Chloe," he said, and then she was hugging him, not caring about protocol or the crowd watching. "You son of a bitch," she said into his shoulder. "We buried you. We had a memorial service. Your wife thinks you're dead." "I know, I'm sorry. I tried to get word out, but..." He pulled back and she could see the haunted look in his eyes. "They wanted information about the F-22, about our tactics, our capabilities. When I wouldn't talk, it got unpleasant." General Morrison stepped forward. "Colonel Rivera, we need to debrief you immediately. There are a lot of questions." "Sir, with respect, I need to call my wife first." "Already done, son. She's on her way here with your daughter. Should land in about 3 hours." Marcus's composure finally cracked. Tears ran down his face as the reality hit him. He was home. He was safe. He was going to see his family again. "Colonel, one question can't wait," the general continued. "How did you escape? How did you steal one of their fighters?" Marcus wiped his eyes and managed a weak smile. "Would you believe they had me servicing their aircraft? Forced labor. They didn't think an American pilot could read Cyrillic. Took me 2 weeks to memorize the startup sequence, another week to find an opportunity. When they scrambled to intercept one of our reconnaissance flights yesterday, I knew it was my only chance. Knocked out a guard, stole his flight gear, and took off while they were all focused on our RC-135. And they chased you for, 18 hours? Something like that. I've been island hopping through the Aleutians, siphoning fuel from fishing boats and remote airstrips. Every time I got airborne, they were right behind me. I think they really wanted their plane back." Chloe looked at the damaged Su-35, now surrounded by intelligence officers taking photographs from every angle. "Well, we've got it now. The intelligence guys are going to have a field day with this." "Ma'am," a young airman approached, "General Morrison wants all involved aircrew in the briefing room in 10 minutes. The next several hours were a blur of debriefings, intelligence assessments, and diplomatic cables. The Russian government was already denying any knowledge of Wagner Group's operations, claiming the mercenaries had gone rogue. The burned pilot had been recovered by a Coast Guard helicopter and was being treated for minor injuries at the base hospital. He was refusing to talk, but his presence in U.S. custody was a diplomatic goldmine. Through it all, Chloe couldn't shake the image of Marcus's fighter sliding down that runway, or the sound of his voice on the radio after 3 weeks of thinking he was dead. She'd been in combat before, had lost friends before, but something about this felt different. They'd brought someone back from the dead. As she sat in the squadron ready room that evening, watching the news coverage of the incident, already being spun as aggressive Russian provocation, thwarted by alert U.S. forces, Boxer sat down next to her. "Hell of a day," he said simply. "That's an understatement. You know there's going to be an investigation, right? You fired on that missile without authorization. Some desk jockey in D.C. might try to hang you for it." Chloe shrugged. "Let them try. I'd do it again. I know you would. That's what makes you a good pilot." He paused. "And a good friend. Marcus is lucky you were up there." Before she could respond, the ready room door opened and Marcus walked in, now wearing a fresh Air Force flight suit. The room erupted in cheers and applause. These were his pilots, his squadron, the ones who'd mourned him and now celebrated his return. He made his way through the backslaps and handshakes to where Chloe sat. "Got a minute?" They stepped outside into the crisp Alaskan evening. The northern lights were just beginning to dance across the sky, green curtains shimmering against the stars. "Catherine and Sophia just landed," he said. "I'm about to go see them for the first time, and God, it feels like a lifetime. But I needed to thank you first. You don't need to. Yes, I do. You risked everything up there. Your career, maybe your life. That Russian pilot could have gotten lucky, could have gotten a shot off at you. You would have done the same for me." In a heartbeat, he looked up at the aurora. "You know what kept me going in that prison? Knowing I had to get back, knowing that Catherine needed me, that Sophia needed her father, but also knowing that I had brothers and sisters in arms who would never leave me behind, even when everyone thought I was dead." "We never leave anyone behind," Chloe said softly. "That's not just a motto." "No, it's not." He turned to face her. "The intelligence guys want me to go back to Washington, testify about what I saw, what they did to me. They're talking about using this to pressure Russia on Wagner Group, maybe even get them designated as a terrorist organization." "That's good, isn't it?" "Maybe. But it means I'll be gone for weeks, maybe months. And Catherine, she's already been through hell thinking I was dead. I don't want to leave them again." Chloe understood the dilemma, duty versus family, the eternal military struggle. "You know what I think," she said. "I think you've done enough. You've given everything, including 3 weeks of your life that your family will never get back. Let someone else fight this battle. Go home, Marcus. Hug your wife. Play with your daughter. The Air Force will still be here when you're ready." He smiled, the first genuine smile she'd seen from him since his return. "You always did give good advice, even when we were lieutenants and you told me not to try that barrel roll on final approach. You did it anyway. It almost got us both grounded." He laughed, and for a moment the haunted look left his eyes. "I should go. Catherine's waiting." "Go? And Marcus, welcome home." He hugged her again, brief but heartfelt, then headed toward the base hospital where his family was waiting. Chloe watched him go, then looked back up at the northern lights. The aurora was in full display now, sheets of green and purple light dancing across the heavens. "Ma'am?" An airman approached. "General Morrison wants to see you." Here it comes, she thought. The investigation, the questions about her split-second decision to engage. She followed the airman to the base commander's office, steeling herself for whatever was coming. General Morrison was standing at his window, watching the same aurora. "Major Hall, sit." She sat. "I've been in the Air Force for 32 years, he began, still looking out the window. "I've seen a lot of things, made a lot of hard calls. But what you did today, firing on that missile without authorization, forcing those flankers to back down, that took guts. Sir, I can explain." He held up a hand. "No need. I've already received 3 calls from the Pentagon. The Joint Chiefs are calling you a hero. The State Department is using the footage from your gun camera to prove Russian aggression, and the President wants to give you a medal." Chloe blinked. Sir? But here's the thing, Major. What you did was also technically a violation of the ROE. You fired without being fired upon. In any other circumstance, that would end your career. He turned to face her. Lucky for you, these aren't normal circumstances. The pilot you saved has intelligence that could change our entire understanding of Russian operations in the Pacific. The flanker you splashed was carrying air-to-ground ordnance, suggesting they were planning something more than just recovering their aircraft. And that Wagner Group pilot we recovered? He's already trying to make a deal. So what happens now? Now? Now you go home and get some rest. Tomorrow, you'll probably have to tell this story a dozen more times to people with stars on their shoulders. Next week, you'll likely be in Washington shaking hands with people who make more in a day than you make in a year. He smiled. But tonight, you're just a pilot who brought a friend home. That's worth celebrating. As she left the general's office, Chloe's phone buzzed with a message. It was a photo from Marcus, him, Catherine, and Sophia, all crying and laughing at the same time, embracing in a hospital corridor. The text read simply, "Thank you." She smiled and headed for her quarters. Tomorrow would bring investigations and interviews, medals, and media attention. But tonight, she was content knowing that somewhere on this base, a family was whole again. A pilot who was supposed to be dead was tucking his daughter into bed and holding his wife. The ghost had come home. Later that night, as she lay in her bunk, Chloe thought about the moment when she'd heard Marcus's call sign on the radio. The impossibility of it, the shock of hearing the dead speak. In their line of work, miracles were rare. Most of the time, when someone didn't come home, they stayed gone. The empty chairs at squadron meetings remained empty. The photographs on the memorial wall accumulated dust. But sometimes, just sometimes, the impossible happened. A pilot presumed dead found a way home. A shot that shouldn't have worked knocked a missile off course. A handful of fighters convinced a superior force to withdraw. These were the moments that defined not just careers, but lives, the stories that would be told in ready rooms and officers' clubs for generations. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a message from the 90th Fighter Squadron group chat. Mandatory squadron meeting tomorrow, 0800. Uniform of the day, flight suits. Agenda, welcome back Ghost. The responses flooded in immediately. Emojis, exclamation points, and promises to bring Marcus's favorite beer. The squadron that had mourned together would now celebrate together. Chloe set her phone aside and closed her eyes. Outside, the northern lights continued their ancient dance, indifferent to the human drama that had played out beneath them. But for those who had witnessed it, the pilots who had flown, the controllers who had watched, the families who had waited, this night would be forever burned into memory. In the morning, there would be questions to answer and reports to file. The diplomatic machinery would grind on, turning today's near catastrophe into tomorrow's talking points. But for now, in the quiet of her quarters, Major Chloe Hall allowed herself a moment of pure satisfaction. She had done her job. She had brought her friend home. And sometimes, in a world of impossible choices and split-second decisions, that was enough. The last thing she thought before drifting off to sleep was that Marcus still owed her that bottle of Macallan 18. And after today, she was definitely going to collect. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, you can subscribe to see more incredible stories like this one.